Hey guys, today I'm going to show you a little bit about using this MIG welder. We've got this older Millermatic 251 and then we've got two other Millermatic 252s in the shop. They're basically the same thing. The settings are just a little bit different. So we'll start at the beginning and work our way up. Alright, so got our power switch. Turn that on. On all of these welders I have tried to make it as easy for you as I can. So since we mostly weld 1/4 inch plate, I've got the settings on each welder written here. So you can see it says 1/4 inch. It's going to be 19 on the voltage and 320 on the wire speed. And then we weld a lot of square tubing, so that'll be 16 gauge normally, and that's 17.5, 200 on the wire speed. So let's translate these numbers over to the dial so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here, V for voltage, we've got it at 19. Then on the wire speed, I've got it set at 277. So that's really a little low, and so I'll just bump this up 320-ish area. It doesn't need to be exact, it just gets you a ballpark area. And if you keep having trouble and pass, like on a fillet or something, you might try messing around with the voltage and the wire speed, going up or down, you know, whatever way fits. It says MIG gun right here. This is plugged in, and this goes right here. This pops out real easy, so I'm just letting you know that sometimes if the gun's not working, this is the first thing I check, because it gets pulled out a lot. And we'll go into this piece, which is our lead. So our lead is attached to our gun. And then I want to show you just a couple of different aspects of the gun. So this is a Profax 250 amp gun. It's just a normal aftermarket replacement for these guns. You've got your trigger right here. Whoops, sorry about that. You've got your trigger right here. You've got your nozzle, and then inside of the nozzle there is a tip, all right? And so this is your insulator cup. There's different styles. This one's just a ceramic one. And this tip threads in. It's a 0.035 or an 0.35 tip, and I run 0.35 wire almost exclusively. So you've got to have the right size wire, right size tip. And then you've got your nozzle, and it's hard to see, but you've got these little holes right here. And so what happens is when you pull the trigger and the bottle is on, it's going to release gas, and that gas is going to come out. So like we've talked about in class before, we are using C25. That's a 75% argon mix with 25% carbon dioxide, just to cut the expense of that and make it a little bit cheaper. So we'll go back over to the machine. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our bottle, and like we just talked about, on all of these bottles it will tell you what kind of gas it is. 75% argon, 25% carbon dioxide, and then a lot of these companies mark it, and then they're also color coded so that you can tell what kind of gas it is without having to walk around. Okay, so let's look at our gauge right here. So I've turned that on. You only need to turn it, 2 turns. And then if we go to the gauge closest to the bottle, that's going to be the bottle pressure. And so we're still at 1,250 pounds. This bottle's about half full. And then over here, if you look at the bottom, it says CFH in black, and we're a little bit high. I'll dial that back and I'll mess with that in a minute. But normally I keep it at about 20, all right? So we don't want this pegged up real high because we're just wasting gas. And if we're wasting gas, we're wasting. So not too much to see on here. The other thing is the ground. You've got to make sure that whatever your ground is connected to, it's actually grounding through to your piece. I'm going to go ahead and open the side of this up. Okay, so I'm going to show you what's inside this panel. We've got our spool of wire, and you can see that spool is getting a little low. This is a 33-pound spool, and then the wire feeds into here, these drive rollers, and the drive rollers are very close together and they have a little channel in them. And as they turn, it pulls the wire on the spool. So if you're not getting any wire, make sure the tip's not clogged, and the next thing you're going to do is look in here to see. Also on this welder, you've got the settings, and I'm going to go through this quickly, but it's on the front on the other welders, but you're going to start here. What kind of material you're welding? We almost exclusively weld steel. We almost exclusively use solid wire ER70S6. And we almost exclusively use 75% argon, 25% CO2. All right, so boom, boom, boom. And then it says, what wire size? I use 0.35. All right, so done, 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 done. And then from here, all you're going to do is go to whatever thickness material you're welding, and you can figure it out. So we'll go to 1/4 inch, and we'll go down to here. It says 19,320, and that's exactly what we have written. So you can answer your own questions with this setting chart. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is proper safety gear. So let's make sure I have everything I need. I have a good set of gloves. I've got my jacket. I've got safety glasses. I've got denim pants on, and I've got my hood, and I've checked the working condition of this hood to make sure that it actually turns on and off, because it is an auto darkening hood. So do not pick up a hood and just assume, one, that it's auto darkening, and two, that it works. You need to check. If it's not clicking on and off when you pull the trigger and you release the trigger and create an arc, then something's wrong and you're going to hurt your eyes. You don't want a software arc flash. I've done it. That's not fun. Okay, so I'm going to put my gear on. All right, now if you've watched my TIG tutorial videos, you'll know that, or you'll notice that this is a lot thicker gear. The gloves are thicker, less feeling in them, and I've got a heavier leather jacket. That's because the MIG welder puts out a lot of sparks, unlike the TIG, and that's going to make it where we need more protection. So let's look at what we're going to do here. I've got a coupon already cut. I just borrowed somebody's. You can see they had a little thing here, a little bead. All right, so I've got this on the table, it's grounded, and then I've got these MIG pliers, and they've got a hole right here, and if you put that like this, all right, make sure you can see that, that gives you the perfect amount of stick out. So we talked about this on the TIG video, but the stick out is how far that wire is sticking out. So now I can touch the wire, and that places me at the proper height away. So if you get in the habit of using those pliers, it's going to make your life much easier, and it's going to make the beginnings of your weld come out the way that you want them. So we'll talk about the 4 basic premises of welding. The first thing we're going to look at are travel angle. All right, so I've got about a 10-degree travel angle as I'm dragging. And when I say 10 degrees, I want you to realize if I'm facing you, that's 10 degrees this way, all right? If I'm going this direction, that's going to be my work angle, which we're going to talk about next. So 10-degree travel angle as I'm pulling, and then from vertical I want about 10 degrees this way. And if you notice that the way the MIG gun is shaped is it's kind of designed with that bend in there to make it comfortable so that you don't have to hold your elbow up like this in an awkward position. So that one, the second one is kind of built in. The third one we briefly discussed, that's going to be your arc length. So I've got my arc length set, and you can see since I'm at a little bit of an angle, the back of the nozzle is about a 1/4 inch away from the material. A lot of times if you're listening while you're welding, if it's popping erratically, pop, 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 either your wire speed's off, and if you have your settings correct, then you know your wire speed's right. If that's correct, then I can almost promise you what's happening is your arc length is too high. You're too far away. So that wire is coming out and it's burning a whole section at a time and popping, and then it takes a second for more to get out. So what you want is just that correct arc length. And the last one is going to be your travel speed. I want this to take, you know, a good 15 seconds to get from here to here, and that's about 3 inches. So we'll review those again. Your arc length, and you can see that right here. Then your travel angle, your work angle, and then your travel speed. And as we progress and we start doing fillets, we're going to have to change that work angle to about 45 degrees, and we'll start talking about manipulating the gun up and down. But for now, I'm just going to run a couple beads just to show you what we're looking at. Set this lens up, and hopefully you can see. I'll try to get a couple different shots. Cover. Notice that I've got this kind of like a tripod. If you're doing this, if you move, it's going to translate into more movement on the end of the gun. So try to stabilize yourself in any way you can that's comfortable. Cover. Okay, so we've got a bead right there, and that bead, honestly, it's pretty high. And one of the things I'm going to show you that I've noticed over the years is, if you look at this hose, and try to keep that as straight as possible, right? So if it's got to have a bend, make them gentle. But that's a pretty consistent bead, even if it is too tall. That height on the bead tells me that I don't really have good penetration. So we'll run back and do another one, and I'm going to try to change the view for you. All right, cover. I'm just watching the puddle, and I'm trying to move the puddle with the tip or the wire to go where I want. It's going to follow where the end of the gun goes. So in this case, I've laid that bead up right next to the other one. There you go. It's a little better. And also what's happening is this piece of metal is getting some heat in it, so it's going to allow me to have better penetration because it's not working so hard to get to a melting temperature. Let's do one more. All right, so there we go. You can see the heat still in there, but you can also see that these beads are stacked perfectly together. So when I tell you I want a coupon and I want you to put beads on it, I don't want it like that, all right? I want it stacked. I want to make sure that you can make a straight line and that you can follow that line consistently every time. Because if you're not welding what needs to be welding, then you ain't welding. You're not going to get a job that way. So here's another example, right? It's not that these welds are necessarily wrong, but I would like to see them stacked on top of each other. And so just to be clear, I'm going to put that wire right on the end of the previous weld. And what that's going to do is allow half of the weld that I'm creating to melt into this original weld and then half to go off. All right, so you're going to drag like this. And then you can start playing around with movement of the gun. So for me, I do kind of like a backwards crescent. You know, it's not a full C like this. It's just a light crescent, right? So I'm going to go up and back, down and back, up and back, down and back, up and back, down and back. So I know that's a little redundant, but I want you to make sure that you understand. I know some people that do kind of like a cursive E, all right? You know, so they're kind of looping and coming back, looping and coming back, looping and coming back, and they're progressing the whole time. It doesn't matter what you do, so long as it's working for you. So if you find a technique that works, if you can just drag it, that's great. If you want to do the crescents or whatever, then do that, just as long as the results are speaking for themselves. Okay, I'm going to stop this video here. On the next one, we'll go over making a fillet. But for now, I do want to mention a couple things. Make sure you've got the correct gear. As a rule, try not to step on this lead whenever you're done. Make sure this lead gets put up, right? We don't want stuff getting, you know, banged around on the gun, and we're trying not to drag anything heavy on here. We don't want to drop anything sharp, and we don't want to walk on it. It helps protect the liner inside of the lead, and it will make these leads last forever. On my own personal welders, I've had some of these leads for 20 years because I take care of them. In a shop setting, I've seen these leads get killed as quickly as a year at, you know, $300 a pop. So remember, we're trying to make everything last, trying not to waste money. And with that said, you can take a look at this and I'll talk real quickly about what we're looking for. I'm looking for straightness, and you can see these little curves. Those are your freeze lines. I'm looking for consistent freeze lines because that tells me that you're moving at correct speed and a steady speed. And I'm looking for this to penetrate in, so it's not very tall, unlike that first one that I did. And what that is telling me is that more than likely this filler wire is getting hot enough to go down and blend with the parent metal of the coupon. So make a coupon, do your lines nice and straight, and remember, I want these welds correct, but I also want you to demonstrate that you have control of the gun. To do that, make these lines stack on top of each other just like I'm showing you. Okay, I hope that helps you get started with MIG welding. In the next video, we'll go over doing a fillet joint or a T-joint, and we'll talk about what it takes to do some very basic introductory certification. Bye-bye.